Aria, it's great to have you with me today. It's been, like we just discussed, it was January, now it's May, and it went really quick. So I was lucky enough to actually get to meet you briefly at the Podfest in January. So you were a speaker there, and I approached you just getting to know you a little bit more, and was interested in hearing your journey in life and what you're doing and how you help others. So why don't we just start off? You just share with everybody who you are, what you're passionate about, what you're doing, and then we can dive into, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is Aria Leighty, and I am the founder of Show the Fuck Up Media and a visibility strategist. And I'm also known as the networking queen. The talk that you sat in on was the art of intentional networking. And that's what I really love to do is travel around, help people learn how to create really authentic, intentional relationships in this world where it's very like, lead magnet and funnel this and like try to get as many people into a pool as possible and not have those like really strong human to human connections. I think we lost that along the way. So I love to be able to come in and teach people how to build those relationships.
That's awesome. Yeah, and we'll have to touch back on that. But I like to get to know, I like to get to know more about you and how you got.
Oh,
So feel free to, start wherever you want in life. What led you into networking? How you wind up in this, this area, this work that you or passion with. I would.
Yeah. I actually realized that I was a really good networker. I was 19 and I got into the corporate world. I was an executive recruiter at the time, and I was just landing all of these deals by actually making connections with people and treating them like humans and caring about what they had going on. And people in the office were like, "How are you getting all of these deals?" Or like, that person would never pick up the phone for me. Like, how did you connect with him? And I'm like, oh, well, I know that he hangs out here. And so I went up and like started talking to him, and we have this in common and know that he's going to be hiring for this soon. And they just couldn't like believe that that was like a thing. And I really didn't even know that this was like a skill until I started like piecing it together. Um, and so I became an entrepreneur when I was 23. And so that really started coming into play when I was building different businesses and creating different projects. I have worn like every single hat ever. Like I have owned so many different businesses, and a lot of them have been like overlapping at like the same time. I've been a creative director and a wardrobe stylist. I have been an executive recruiter, like I said. I have owned brick and mortar kids art studios. I've started networking groups that grew to thousands and thousands of members nationwide and built memberships, and then been a consultant and a strategist. So all of those things had that networking tie through it. And I was able to take those relationships that I started building when I was 19 and have them grow with me through each pivot, through each change, launch, and season of my life and business. And in their new seasons, right? Because they're not where they were when we started connecting. So yeah, it's been a beautiful journey.
Yeah, and that was a lot. But
Yeah.
everything, probably left out 30 of them. But so you were shifted from so many different businesses. I mean,
Yeah.
what was the reason for that?
I mean, I've just been somebody that loves to like try different things out, and I've always been very multi-passionate and never let, different things stop me. Especially when I was younger, like I really want to tap into that. Like, I love how naive she was to just be like, I'm gonna start this. Like, what's the point of waiting? Like, let's just see what happens if I do this. And a lot of them like wove in. All of them have like a very like creative and also community tie to them. So it was something that I've just always wanted to do. And then I get distracted by the next shiny thing or the next idea. And I'm like, I can do this, right? Like, why not? Why not add that to the plate?
Right. So you pushed off one thing and you would jump to another for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, or I would just like balance all of them at the same time, Like I'm just somebody that believes that life is too short to not do all of the things that you want to do. Some of them were huge successes. Like I've sold one of my businesses. Some of them weren't the best, and I learned a lot along the way on how to actually build a sustainable business and how to not lose all of your money. So, like it's been a cool ride.
How do you not lose on your money? No, I just
That's a whole nother
yeah, right. So you're into networking, right? And so let's shift it to all these different businesses. So I mean, did you find that like, 10 people from here that you knew would help you out getting, referrals or whatever for another business when you moved on?
Yeah, absolutely. Because intentional networking is really the art of building and nurturing long-term mutually beneficial relationships. So I think one of the things that people get wrong about networking is they're only looking to network with people that fit that season of where they're at then. But I was building, again, human connections. So there are a lot of a lot of identities that people have, right? Like they might have been a corporate HR person when I met them. But, when I build the kids' art studio, they have kids. They remember me from, 5 years ago from being of service to them and building that relationship and starting that friendship. So they're like, of course, we're going to come, visit and support your studio. And that's the difference between marketing and networking. I think people get those two mixed up sometimes. Like marketing is really talking about that thing that you're doing, your offer, your business. Networking is building the relationships for who you are, what you value, the things that align in your life, the things that you have in common with people. So it really doesn't matter what you have to do. And then you don't have to start from scratch every single time, right? Because you already have this network of people that you've given to generously, that you've showed up for, that you've made referrals for, that want to support you back when you have something to offer that makes sense for them.
Yeah. And so do you find that more people are trying to network or market, however you want to put it, to sell, instead of those connections?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I see it all the time. And it's a very outdated model. And I think that's why a lot of people hate networking. Like when I'm like, hey, I'm going to teach you how to network, they're instantly like, ugh, because they picture that shoving a business card in somebody's face and a super rehearsed elevator pitch, and elevator pitches are totally dead. Not the time and place to give a 30-second weird spiel. So I always say take your sales and marketing hat off before you go into that room, put your relationship hat on. And then you don't have to remember anything. You don't have to stick to a script. You don't have to put so much pressure on yourself to seal the deal, because nobody wants to be talked to like they're, a price tag or, an opportunity to make money. People want to be talked to like you care about them. So going in with active listening, really asking. I ask so many questions because I want to know how I can show up for that person. Who do I know in my network that they might need to be introduced to? How can I show value to them? How can I, connect them to somebody? So I can't know any of that unless I'm asking a lot of questions. People love to talk about themselves. And so that's going to leave a lasting impression anyways, because, 30 people just shoved a business card in their face. And now somebody's actually like, oh, John, tell me about your podcast. Who are you trying to interview? Who can I connect you with? That's going to leave a lasting impression, and they're going to want to have that next touch so that you can nurture the relationships for long term.
Yeah. And I feel like I would agree that doesn't exist as much. I feel like it's coming around, but I mean, and that's kind of like where you started when you said authenticity in the beginning. And, I'm just going to add real quick. I was on somebody else's podcast real quick, and I'm so quick last week, and they asked me about authenticity because I mentioned it somewhere, and
Yeah.
I said, I quit drinking like a year and a half ago, and I said that was for me to be more authentic as myself, right, and for kids and stuff, because there's nothing that's taken over control of my body. So in that sense, she didn't understand that part. She understood it, but she didn't even think about doing physically like that would, you could be considered authentic. It was more, she was thinking about, people talking, listening to each other. So, I mean, how do you feel authenticity is to you, and how do you show up to be authentic in, for yourself to others?
Yeah. I think being authentic, there's still, that word gets thrown around a lot, but then we still have we'll be authentic, but not on full blast, right? We'll have our personality, but a little bit watered down, right? It's showing up in a room fully as yourself. and untraining that part of your mind that thinks that you have to be quote unquote professional, or you have to be whatever these things that society tells you that you have to be to feel worthy to be in that room in the first place. So many of us go in with that like mask on so that we can like impress people. And then like if you see somebody across the room that's just as awkward or weird or funny or anything as you, like that's how that connection starts. And you know that feeling when you find somebody in a room where you're like, oh, thank God somebody else cool is here, or somebody else, and you're not going to find that unless you are showing up, in your authenticity. Like when I first started networking, especially when I first started building the networking group, like we were traveling everywhere. We had thousands of members. People knew who I was before I was like walking into the room. And I actually did not like that. Like it was too much pressure for me. And so I would like have to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sweaty, or I'm so nervous, or, and people loved that. Like they were like, this is, you're real. And so I want to be in connection with people that are real. I want to hire you because I know that you get it. I know that you're you have the same personality as me. And you would be surprised at ways that you can build relationships and start conversations, like a funny joke, just seeing like, what the hell did we get ourselves into by being in this space? Like, or even just saying like, I'm a little bit nervous. Like, do you know anybody here? Can you make any intros for me? People, we need to see that realness, like, especially with social media. Social media is painting this picture of like, there's one way to be successful. You have to look like this, move like this, work like this, approach life like this. And so a lot of people think success and business are like inaccessible to them, that they couldn't fit into that mold. And so when we can really show up being real, it makes everybody be like, okay, yeah, I actually do have a seat at this table. I can, be in these spaces.
Yeah, people aren't judging you, for the ones that are listening to you and stuff. But they just want to listen and learn and get to know who you really are. And I will have to say, when you were up on stage and presenting your speech, that's how I took it, as you just being yourself, right? And I'm not saying everybody else wasn't, but you feel it sometimes. It's just a script, right? And I'm here to say this. And for me, being a participant in the seats, you could just feel some kind of like a roadblock with some of the people that decide to show up and just sit down and put their guard up in a way. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They don't want to invite you in, or they're afraid to share who they really are because they're maybe embarrassed, think that you're going to think totally different of them, like there's something wrong with them, and that's not the case. But everybody thinks that. That's just how the world is. Everybody kind of puts each other down in a sense, and it's the rooms you get in, and it's the people you surround yourself with. So I wasn't in the VIP section, but I would imagine there are pretty people, that paid more money to sit in there and have a good time. But yeah, so I mean, it's being myself has been a big change for me. It's weird to say that in a way, but I want to say for a long time in my life, I was pretty much closed up. So I would suggest whoever's listening or watching this, to dive deep into yourself and just be you, because that's you're going to attract the right people because they appreciate you for who you are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we connected. There was how many people at PodFest? Like thousands, maybe. You know what I mean? So it's like, obviously our personalities connected. We clicked. Like you felt like a safe person when we were having a conversation, and, networking has opened up so many doors for me. So that was able to get this opportunity too. But like you stuck out in a crowd full of thousands because of your personality and because of your approach and because of the way that you started the conversation, and then like your kindness leading up to the to the interview and all of that kind of stuff. So I mean, that's how I always say, like, how do you want to be remembered? And I don't think that people realize that they're being perceived, like, because we're so busy, like, perceiving other people. How do you want people to feel when you walk away from that conversation? How do you want people, like, when they hear your name, how do you want people to, like, feel? Like, do you want it to be, like, warm and fuzzy? Or do you want to be, like, unapproachable, too cool for school, can't talk to that person,
Yeah. Yeah. And thankfully you are who you are, right? You know, like, oh, I guess I'm talking to somebody else. I'll talk to you later, you know, whatever. And that was,
Yeah.
you know, and it was just a short, brief moment that we were able to talk for a little bit. But there are those people that just push you off, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
what's that do to the person that's trying to reach out to you? It kind of puts them down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all started somewhere. I think that that era of entrepreneur, like that's crashing and burning really fast. Like we can see, you know, the way that people are responding to things now. And so it's just opening new doors for people like us that do just want to be chill and have conversations and treat people like humans and not consider, like I hate like, oh, this is a VIP section and this is like the commoners, like, ew, we're all very important people here, actually.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. I know. Well, it's like you're at the bottom of the Titanic and they're at the top, you know.
Right. No life quotes for you.
That's all right. So I mean, so you mentioned being a good listener and stuff. Is that something that you felt like you always had inside of you?
I've always had a curiosity. I mean, I don't know that everyone would always say that I've always been a good listener, but I've always been very curious about people and wanting to learn more about them and wanting to see like what makes them tick and what their story is. So I think that I've always asked like a lot of questions and always wanted to learn more about people. But it takes practice to actively listen, especially in a networking setting, because you have so much pressure on you that sometimes you're so busy thinking about what your next thing is going to be that you're not even like actually taking in what the people are saying. Like I'm actually notorious for forgetting somebody's name instantly because in that first like intro where I'm like, oh, hi, my name is Aria. Like I forgot that you said your name was John because I was so worried about like what the next thing is going to be. And like there's always that like 15-second anxiety at the start of a conversation. So I have to be like, and what was your name? Now that I know your entire life story and we're besties, what's your name again?
That is funny. And I think it's Jim Quick or whatever. He does say stuff like that where it's, you know, you don't remember people's names because you tell yourself you're not going to remember the name. So it's something that's something you can work on, right? So like one of the things I try to do is I try to say it 3 times, right? So I haven't done that yet in this conversation, but it's something to work on, and then that's it's repetition, right? So is there a question that you like to ask when you're talking to somebody to dig deeper, so you can listen and get to know them better? Is there one off the top of your head that you would probably ask the most?
I mean, if it's a networking event or a conference focus type thing, then because you can network anywhere, it doesn't have to be a specific type of event. But if it was networking focus, I'd probably ask if they go to that event often, what brought them there, what their intention is, like what they want to get out of the experience. That's actually been a great way for me to build relationships and again show that value, because if they're like, I'm really trying to get a sponsor for my podcast, then I have that in my head. Then when I go up to a sponsor booth and I'm chatting, then I'm like, oh, you should also meet, you know, so and so, like let me, you know, bring her over here or whatever, you know, like that's a way to like really get instant connection. Or if it's like, oh, I've always wanted to have an SEO expert on my podcast, then I can be like, okay, well now I'm going to be on the lookout while I'm talking, or I'm going to be thinking about who on my network is an SEO expert to have that like instant connection with you.
So that's asking them more in the business, right? But is that more, I mean, you want to know more about them as a person?
Well, I think it tells you a lot about, I mean, people are going to answer things like, what's your intention of being here? Like that could go any different way, right? And like you can learn about somebody and who they are as a person by the way that they respond, the way that I mean, if they're nervous, if they've never done anything before, if this is their first like event, you know, like there's lots of ways to figure out who somebody is as a person. I'm not going to be like, hey, who did you vote for and what is your and for women, like, I mean, a compliment is always like the best way to like start a conversation. So like kicking it off with like talking about shoes, which will often like lead to like a different type of, thing about like style or designers or whatever,
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Although I'm not going to be talking about shoes. It's
You can still say, hey, those are cool shoes.
yeah, those are cool shoes. Yeah, there's Nikes. No. Uh, but yeah, I mean, so you get to know them as a person. I had another question for you to roll off on that one. Anyways, anyways, it was so you get to know them as a person. You know what they're doing. You're kind of fitting into your network, kind of helping them out. I mean, so at what time do you like? Not that you want to spin it, right? But I mean, when do you stop giving in a way because they're not back?
Yeah. I mean, it's a case by case basis, but like the thing that I'll say is that you can drop little hints, right? Like if somebody says something, I can be like, oh my gosh, I have a client that does that. Or, I was just talking to a client about that. Like, then that will prompt them to probably ask like what it is that I do. But I'm more worried about like getting a next touch point than I am like having some sort of like pitch right then. So I always say you need to find a way to swap information, not a business card, but like information. So like a phone number, an Instagram, something. And especially if you have something of value, like, oh, I want to introduce you to that SEO person. Instagram, like send me a DM right now so that I remember like when everything settles down, then you have that next entry point, right? But then also they have a way of like consuming your content and they can see everything right then and there, especially if you're making the most out of whatever platform you sent them to. Then that's going to be a way for them to like really figure out how to connect with you. Like on my Instagram, I don't even post a lot. Like I use social media in a very social way. So it's not a content creation way. But my first post on Instagram says start here. And it literally tells you everything about who I am as a person, what I like, how to work with me, how to like plug into my world, the types of like referrals that you can send me. So when I'm, shooting that DM or having them follow me on Instagram, they're going to be able to see that and take that all in. And I've already left that lasting impression because I was the only one that was caring about them in that room. And so they're going to want to like learn more and be curious about me as well. And again, it's long term, right? So I don't have to make sure that I pitch right in that moment.
No.
If this is a long term relationship, then months later it could come back around.
You're providing value. You're trying to network and help them out. That's how it comes back around.
Yeah.
But it's not. It doesn't always have to be in that case. So how does somebody reach out to you, for your services or, I don't know if you have any kind of coaching or anything going on, but what's the best way besides your Insta?
Yes, absolutely. So Show the Fuck Up Media is a media company. I shifted to a media model so that I could have more opportunity for women of color, the BIPOC community, people that are maybe like a little bit more introverted or shy, the people that don't always have the opportunities to get visible or don't even know where to start. I wanted to take that Rolodex of everything that I've been doing for the past 20 years and like make it available. So they can subscribe to The Plug, which is a free newsletter that drops every month. It actually came out today. And it is literally a peek into all of the event hosts that I know that are looking for speakers, all of the podcast hosts that are looking for guests. And a lot of the podcast hosts, they don't even open up for guest submissions, but they did for The Plug. So it's a really good opportunity to start building that credibility. And I know that I'll put in your course in the resources section for June, because I know you got a good one for starting a podcast. So that's a great place to start. And then you can also join the club, which is the next level to that. And there's office hours where you can have access to unique to you visibility strategy. You can network with my community. I'll review your pitches that you're sending out and work on your messaging with you. So yeah. Awesome.
Aria, what don't you do? I mean,
sleep.
Okay. All right. That says it all. So the question I ask everybody is, what are 3 key things you learn and use along your journey?
3 key things that I've learned. Oh, shoot. Start with what you have, start messy and raw, and then build as you go. Like, don't wait until everything is perfect. What else have I learned? It's okay to say no. Going back to not losing all your money in your business, it's okay. It's okay to say no to people, and to set boundaries. And then, yeah, be authentic, be you. That's it.
There you go.
That's it.
I do like the don't be perfect. I haven't gotten that one yet that I can remember. And that's a big thing, right? A lot of people focus on knowing every little detail before they,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And people love to see the behind the scenes, and they love to be a part of the growth. Like, they love to see you, my first mastermind, I sold out using a Google Doc. Like, I didn't have a website. I didn't have any of that. I just had my knowledge, and I sold it out. And a lot of those clients, stuck with me and grew with me. And it went from a $500 price point to work with me up to, tens of thousands. And people like to see that progression, and they like to learn from you taking the actions and failing forward along the way. They love to see that.
Yeah. And you're not giving up, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad we just spoke a little bit about that one. That's awesome. Aria, do you have anything else you would like to add before we end the show?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram if you are nervous about networking, if you know that you need to be connected to somebody, if you want a referral. Like, I'm just as generous on the social platforms as I am in like networking rooms. So I would love to just start a conversation based on what you heard today.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad we were able to connect.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.